Welcome to Board Game Binge, the place where we bring you bite-sized, bingeable board game content from across the industry. I'm your host, James Staley, and in this episode, we're welcoming back Bernie Lynn and Brendan Kendrick from Dead Alive Games. Their newest title, Lunar Skyline, a trick-taking game, is currently on Kickstarter. Gentlemen, welcome back to the binge. How you doing?
Howdy.
Great.
Good to be back.
Good to be
Oh,
back. Yeah.
It is awesome having you come back. I just was saying just before we came on air, I did a quick search, and I always like to do this when I bring people back on the podcast to say, okay, when did we have them on last? I can let people kind of go and refer to that prior episode. Episode 4. We're in episode 320
It's
now.
amazing.
That is insane. I can't even believe it. You guys are like the OG. You were there at the very beginning, which is crazy. I could have swore it was like maybe a year and a half ago, maybe, but yeah, right there at the beginning, which is so surreal. I went back and checked that episode out. Usually, I tell people to check it out, the prior episode. To find episode 4, you can't even get it in the audio podcast now. I know Apple Podcasts only goes as far back as I think it starts at episode 100. So if you want to check out episode 4, it's through YouTube or go on boardgamebinge.com and you can see the full back catalog there. But hey, today we're going to catch up, and we're going to talk about some of these stories that we've had from the past and hopefully get people to know who Dead Alive Games is. So let's start there. First, Dead Alive Games, introduce yourselves.
Brendan Kendrick. I cruelly tricked Bernie into joining me in this endeavor with my crazy game idea that started us off, Omicron Protocol. And yeah.
So I'm Bernie Lynn. I'm the one that got tricked. And it's actually 7 years now, looking back.
7 years. Wow.
7 years from the first Omicron Protocol idea.
Now you guys
So-
were painting miniatures or something like that. I think I read a story somewhere that you got you still do, obviously, right? But is that how you guys met? In miniature painting groups and things like that, or
Miniature gaming, more tactical miniature gaming, skirmish level stuff. But
Star Wars X-Wing, that's
yeah.
how we met.
we did do
Yeah.
some painting together, but I was definitely more interested in the hobby aspect. Bernie
Mostly Brendan teaching me how to paint.
and Bernie teaching me how to win tournaments, at the X-Wing and stuff like that. So yeah.
yeah, and you guys are still deeply involved in the industry. We're just saying, again, before we came on air here, the reason we have today's episode today is you guys both have full-time jobs, and secondly, you're heavily involved in the conventions and things like that, right? For play testing and so forth.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. I mean, we on our Facebook pages and all that, we have a little schedule every year of which conventions we'll be at, and it's
Yeah.
usually from 12 to 15 of them, not counting tiny ones I went to this past weekend.
And then how do you do? So what are your full-time jobs? So let's start off with Brendan. What do you do? What's your day job?
For the last few years, I've been teaching web development at a sort of a boot camp environment.
Oh,
So
nice.
yeah,
Yeah,
teaching.
Bernie?
Yeah, I'm a technical product program manager at different startups, tech startups, and now currently at a fintech hedge fund.
Oh my gosh. So then how do you find the time
Ah,
to do these conventions? I literally just got a note from Origins, right? The organizer there, because I said, hey, I got bumped from the the new exhibitors bookings that we had. I had one booked last year and I got bumped, so I said, hey, can I get the
Oh.
first exhibitor potentially this year? They finally got back to me, and I'm doing kind of the second guess of do I go or not, just because
hmm.
cost, time commitment, it's quite significant, right? And especially one like that where you're looking at minimum, you're starting on the Wednesday, right? So Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
hmm
How do you do these when you're both working full-time jobs? How does that juggle for you guys?
It is tough.
We
It's all of my PTO for
Yeah,
sure.
same.
So,
There's no
no vacation outside of conventions. So yeah.
Yeah, and the other thing, Brandon actually set this one up, which is genius. We sometimes go the weekend before now and just rent an Airbnb and work for the Monday and Tuesdays and Wednesday, so we don't have to take those days off, and we're already there. So you take out the travel time to save another day.
Oh, that's smart.
It's really tough.
Wow.
Yeah.
And now you've been doing this for quite a while. Omicron Protocol was first one that you guys first attempted didn't fund, came back. This was the topic of our last episode. We had episode 4, and it's kind of high-fiving you guys that you kind of pulled up the bootstraps and came back at it. And sometimes you don't realize what you don't know until you do that, right? Until you come at it again. And almost always it's always stronger, right? Almost always it's stronger coming back at it for a second kick of the can. And it becomes a balance, I think, for some people nowadays of how quickly do I pull it, right? An example I would give is I saw the guys do Castlescape recently had an expansion that they were putting on GameFound. And they end up pulling it, right? And they said, hey, sorry, everyone, we're going to pull it. It's not funding at the levels we wanted. And I high-fived them. I said, good for you. Good for you to not, let this drag out, to start saying there's enough data around us now to know the math is the math, right? And if the math isn't working, you pull it and say, okay, we've got to tweak and retool and come back at it. And almost always it's a much stronger and faster funded campaign than had they have kind of let it stretch out. Now that you guys are working on different games, so you've had Omnicron Protocol, you had the Cyber Pet, I think was the next game.
Cyber Pet Quest.
Yeah,
and then funded. Lunar Rush. Lunar Rush was before that
as well.
Yeah.
Now the Lunar Rush, I think was that the one you brought a new another game designer into, or did you start bringing in other designers during the Cyber Pet one?
Lunar Rush was another designer. That was our first published game where we just did development and publishing. And then Cyber Pet Quest, we went back designing again. And then now Lunar Skyline, we're bringing another designer in. So we're kind of doing this little alternating thing.
So what was the decision to do that, to start bringing in other designers for these games you're launching versus kind of continuing on with your designs and your ideas and concepts?
A lot of it's time based, just like you mentioned, it's hard with full-time jobs and all that stuff. I've got a 4-year-old now, so when we started, I mean, we were able to just meet like 5 times a week and play test and like get it done. But with a new child in the mix, it's like I just don't have that kind of time to work on our own stuff as much as we used to. So that was a big part of kind of making that decision for our second game. Was like, okay, well, this game we like, this guy's cool, he's fun to work with. And so we decided to try to take advantage of the stuff that we learned in terms of the business aspect and make something happen. Yeah.
And I guess, as you probably know, like a lot of the publishing work is relationships and just repeating kind of the same process. And once you do it once, that first time is the hardest. But once you know it, there's a lot of designers out there who don't want to run a business and they just want to design cool games and see it come to life. So it was actually like just a perfect match. After we finally finished Omicron Protocol, we're like, okay, it's kind of a waste if we only do one game and just stop. And then Skippy just had this brilliant idea for Lunar Rush, and we're like, let's try this publishing thing. And it was right. Like we just used similar processes, same manufacturer contacts and everything. So that Skippy doesn't have to do that. And now he has like 20 other games designed and a few others signed.
Yeah, it's kind of letting people kind of work their lane, so to speak, right? So if someone just wants to do game design, and gosh, there's so many game designers out there that are cranking out huge volume of game designs, right? And it is a volume game, right? To make kind of a go out of it and to make that kind of something that you can at least call it jobby, where you're doing it on the side and you're generating some good income. There is volume, right? Because you make a lot less if you're just a designer. The publishing and all the risk is on the publisher side. And likewise, not everybody wants to do business, right? Not everybody wants to be an entrepreneur. And that is essentially what publishing a game is. You're an entrepreneur, right? You're running a business and you have to make those decisions. Where did you meet this particular designer? Was this someone that you had kind of come across their game? Did you put out a request, or how did this kind of come about?
To this day, we haven't put out a request yet. So we've just been lucky. Obviously going to all the local playtesting events, that definitely helps a lot. But Skippy Brown is actually William Hungry Gamer Brown's brother. And he invited him over to a small Proto Spiel event in the Bay Area once. And he pitched us he didn't really pitch. We weren't like publishing at the time, but he showed us a bunch of his games that we helped play test that I really liked, and Brendan liked it a lot. And later on, Lunar Rush came during the pandemic, and
Mm.
it was one of those like we already got to know him really well. So I was like, "Hey, it's on TTS. Can you help me play test this?" And I looked back at kind of the TTS logs. I play tested it 10 times in a month with him. I mean, first of all, during the pandemic, not too much other stuff to do, but I just really loved the game. And at that point, we just finished like fulfilling Omicron protocol. And I was like, Brendan, you need to try this. So
And then was the theme already there, or did you add to the theme, or kind of how did the story come about?
We made it work. So yeah, expanded universe, right? Very loose connection, but over the course of, the 100 years since Omicron Protocol, we kind of are like, okay, this is the same world. We have not explained how we got from there to where we are, but it's there. It's in the lore, in the like corporate entities that are represented as like moon mining, conglomerates
Yeah.
are all can be traced back to our like Omicron protocol lore. But aside from that, it was basically intact. So we took the idea and just kind of ran a timeline back, but otherwise we did not really mess with the theme very much.
Yeah, because I was asking this because when we get into your lunar skyline in a second, that thread continues on, right? And
yep,
is it a different designer for lunar skyline or
it's a
same
different
designer?
designer.
Okay, so then now
There's a funny story with that one too. I'll tell you
tell
later.
it. I want to hear it.
Oh, okay. So Lunar Skyline was another design, Charlie McCarran. He also designed For Humors, which is a game I love with Adam Zapple and a few other games. But I went to Minneapolis, which is where Brendan is now. He used to be in San Francisco. And I just went to visit him. He's like, hey, there's a big playtest event. I was like, hey, I'm here. Let's go. And we got assigned to Charlie's table and we just played this trick-taking game with double suits. And I was like, at the end of it, I was like, this is really good. I love trick-taking games, but this two-suit thing just like really changes it and it's really
Hmm.
like crunchy, but the rules are still really simple. And we asked him, hey, what's the name of the prototype right now? He's like Lunar Skyline. And then Brent and I just looked at each other and we're like, okay, it's meant to be. Like
Meant to be.
within a month,
Wow.
within a month, we're just like, I think we need to sign this. It's like Lunar Skyline, really?
Yeah.
And then, so do you take that then to because you have an artist, right? That's part of your team, and
Hmm.
you say, okay, try to make these elements all kind of interconnect a bit, so we've got this kind of story universe, or how did that conversation go?
Lunar Skyline is light story, so it's there. Basically, we're again kind of fast forwarding the clock a little bit. Human life is now established on the moon, where it's kind of just starting out in Lunar Rush. And so again, we just kind of rolled it forward, rolled the clock forward a little bit, took those same corporate entities and rolled them forward. But there isn't a big. I mean, with Omicron Protocol, we wrote a 300-page storybook. Like the lore is deep.
Yeah.
So with Skyline, it's like I barely, it's hard to even really consider it in the same context. But yeah, we're expanding the world.
I mean, part of it is you kind of think Lunar Rush was Gold Rush. So it's just like almost like the story of California.
Yeah.
And now the first metropolis is building up 50 years later. So we're just continuing in that space.
I gotta believe at this point you're looking at this saying, okay, what is the next story 50 years past that? And then,
Well,
the 100 years out, we'll get into that in a little bit, but
mm,
you know what I mean? Like this whole,
yeah,
Yeah.
and we are just saying off air on, Cities of Venus. This is what we're doing, right?
yeah.
We call it the Cities of
Hmm.
Venus universe, where we've got these standalone games that are all connected thematically into the same story that spans, right now, it spans, gosh, about 100 years across
Nice.
the three different chapters. And it's constantly looking at, okay, at one point, my brother and I were, when we were kind of mapping this out, uh, we said we got to write this down, and literally got a pen and started kind of mapping
Mm.
how does everything connect. And it's amazing when you start, every title we look at now, like that question comes up: could this
Hmm.
fit into the universe? What would the reskin look like for this to fit the story? The most recent would be a game, a trick taking game we have called Dust Reclamation,
Hmm.
and it's literally in the story. It's the game that the miners are playing that
Nice.
are on the
Nice,
in the
nice.
city of Venus, and the
Fourth
story is like this is
wall.
what they're playing while they're sitting around waiting for their next deployment down to the surface to do some more mining. So, I can just imagine how giddy you guys must be when you kind of look at the lore that you've created, right, with Omnicom Protocol, and
Hmm.
kind of how these threads are going to kind of connect over time. And I mean, could be over the next 10 years. You could keep,
Mhm.
coming out with
Yeah.
different games and have them all connect, which is just super exciting. So I want to show my screen though, because I want to make sure we cover this off. Lunar Skyline. So first of all, you guys have, I think it finishes this Thursday, you said. I
Yes.
am showing on screen for those who are watching either on the replay or live. So let's talk a little bit about this game. So first of all, congratulations. This is funded. So it's not a question of is it going to fund or not. It is already funded. And it is a trick taking game. So, and it's got some really cool kind of mechanical elements to it that I want you guys kind of talk to. But first, can you give us just an overview of kind of how you play this game?
Okay. I'll take it. So pretty much it's a standard trick-taking game with a bidding mechanism. So bridge or I never played euchre, but someone mentioned
Oh, I love Euchre.
euchre. It was
Yeah,
similar.
so good.
So you start off by taking one of your cards in your hand, and you have to bid a number of tricks that you're trying to win. If you hit that number, you get a bonus card that gives you bonus points, and these are changes every round, so it keeps the game very different each time. On the other side, once you have that bid, you start playing the trick taking game, and there are two suits on each card. So, for example, let's just say water and energy. If someone plays a number from that suit, there are two other suits to the left and the right of it on this wheel. You can pretty much play anything as long as it follows one of the icons.
Mm,
So that opens up so much more like options. And now you have to think about, okay, if I play like a six of water energy, there's an energy robot suit that there's also a six, and the second player, the later player always wins. So now there's a lot of like things you have to plan for. All right, so once you finish, you get a trick. You get to choose the top card of all the cards you want, and that goes into your building as resources to build up your skyline your metropolis building. So with that, at the end of each round, each icon that matches your bid. So your bid has a number and also two icons because it's taken from one of the cards.
hmm
Your goal is 1 point for every single icon in the resources that match that one. If you go over, so let's say I bid three and I got four tricks, now I lose 2 points for every trick I go over. So there's a huge strategy involved with how much do you bid so that you get there without going over because you want to get those bonus cards that give you like extra points for like certain symbols or extra points for things that your opponents do and things like that. The final thing is there's no trump suit in the game. The way the trump suit works is if you don't have a icon that can follow, you can smuggle it into your building as a resource, and that counts as a trick you won. So you get to pick a card from your hand and just say, I won this trick. If you are out of a suit, you can't follow.
Interesting.
Yeah. So that's pretty much the gist of
Really
the
cool.
game.
It kind of blows your mind when you're like, wait, okay, there are, 10 tricks, but wait, there could be many more. The smug, so like one person gets the three cards, you get one, depending on how many people are playing. So it's really it's fun, it's thinky.
It's super visual, and I'm just showing on screen here. The artwork is great. I mean, whoever did
Well,
the
thank
graphic
you.
design, kudos to them because it looks awesome. And having, I find this with many trick taking games, you have kind of this consistent look to cards. They always just kind of look like a regular playing card that's been kind of different artwork, but it's like a
Hmm.
regular playing card, right?
Hmm.
These you've got this kind of really cool kind of space graphics, even kind of the icons on the side, or the way the colors and stuff show with the icons. It is super cool. And then you've got this box that
Yeah.
I'm going to show on screen here that so your play map folds into the box. Can you explain that?
It's the lid, yeah, yeah. So
Yeah.
yeah,
So it's the
Go
lid
ahead.
of the box. It just pulls off, right?
yeah, yeah. We came up with the design for Cyberpunk Quest, so we kind of developed this way of tracking, enemy health essentially, and like who they were with the lid. So we just flip it off, and we've got little like, you know, spaces for health tracking and slot in these different cards and stuff. So we just really like that the lid is such a major part of of the game.
Yeah.
It just makes it fun.
Yeah,
And it lets us get away with
It's
like
magnetic, right? Yeah,
rocks.
that's cool.
Yeah.
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 And for this one thing that you might not realize until you play it is the lead card has to not be blocked. You know how you play like a trick-taking game and everyone just throws their next card on top?
Yep.
Because you can only follow the lead card, you're not following the previous played card. So the lead card needs to kind of like stay in a special place that's not covered so everyone can know like what you have to follow. That's why we're like, okay, we need a place like a little board to hold that lead card. But we don't want to just add another board in there. Let's use the lid. And the deluxe version, we just went even crazier and have a magnetic arm. So you can like turn it like a dial and point it at, hey, your turn. You're the lead.
Oh, that is super. I just see that now on the screen. Oh, that is
Yeah,
super
it's
cool.
that thing at the end.
It's amazing, right? With these, like with any game, it's like how much bells and whistles do you throw in,
Mhm.
right? And my brother he always says, it'd be cool. He always comes up with like these little things of we should do this, we should do that. And at some point, I have to be like, dude, time out. We're gonna lose money. Right?
I am super impressed by the Cities of Venus quad layers board thing.
Oh gosh, thank you. That's
Yeah,
very
I
kind.
got to try one of the prototypes and I was like, this is amazing.
Yeah, it's. I think we're the first one to do that. It is.
Hmm.
It was a ton of development to get that to actually work. As you know, with any of these things, right? Back and
Yeah.
forth with the factory, and the factory will say, "Oh no, it's great, it works fine." You get it, and the thing's like warped, or the thing cars don't slide in, and so it was like there was a lot of time, a lot of money put into those. But then when you get the final result, and you're like, "Wow, this actually works," kind of the way we envisioned it. It's a pretty cool feeling, right? And so no, thank you, I appreciate that. When I see stuff like this, I geek out over this as well. Like, having a magnetic lid and then having like a dial that kind of connects in and spins around. I think it's super awesome. I mean, kudos to you guys for that.
Oh, thank you.
What has been your plans in this kind of final? Because you're in the final stretch right now, right? The final week, and you obviously have that back end hockey stick that kind of like swings up in the last 72 hours. Have you guys kind of mapped out anything for that final week? Is it playtest, or does the jobs kind of get in the way, or how do you handle that?
Yeah, jobs. So we've kind of front loaded, like, I mean, we've scheduled out basically what we're going to do before we launched at
Yeah.
this point. We kind of know, okay, this is what we have time for, to do in
Which
terms.
week to do what thing?
Yeah. So we kind of have to do that or we won't, or we'll be like scrambling. So
Yeah. One of our signatures is quests. I don't know if you've seen it, but we like to get community input and put that in the game. It started with Omicron Protocol. So every week we just run a quest and Brendan usually runs that. He gathers like all of the suggestions and just has the community vote. So we do have one last one that's going to be revealed tomorrow morning for the final week. And these winners all get their names on into our rule book, and whatever they contributed will also be in the rules in the game. So
Oh, that's amazing. I always wonder, like, do you have to put like a disclaimer in there saying like, you've contributed, but you have no ownership over this IP or anything like that, or how do you handle that? You must have to put something in the rules, or
we just say thanks. I mean,
yeah, I guess we say whoever wins this, your name will be mentioned and the game will be there, and that's all you get, I
and
guess.
that's pretty amazing.
You don't have to submit it, I guess.
I am surprised how many people, I guess not surprised anymore, but I was definitely surprised when I first got into this industry of how many people are willing to contribute just to be part of something. They just want to be part of something that's going to be out there, right? And, we often do that when we're doing playtesting with our games, is we'll say to people, hey, if you will give us your time at the beginning when this is a rough stage, I'm going to put you down as one of our lead playtesters in the back of the book. Usually most people are like, oh, wow, I didn't, okay. Yeah, I that no problem. Let's play. That gives you a little bit of, flexibility, I guess, because, as the first couple rounds of playtesting your game after you've kind of materialized it into something tangible are pretty rough, right?
It's rough.
It's pretty rough. So it's very kind for people to give you their time. in
Mhm.
order to sometimes even just work things through. Like that's what we did on one of the recent games. Is I literally started the conversation like that. I said, look, this is very rough. It's kind of, this is the first time I've actually put it down. It's kind of up in my head. I'm trying to get
Mhm.
what's in my head on the table.
Mhm.
We played one hand, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to come back in a couple of weeks.
Hell
I've got enough to
yeah.
realize that I haven't really materialized what's in my head on the table here. And they're asking basic questions where I'm like, yeah, I guess I should have thought of that before I printed this out,
Yeah.
right? But it's a fun process. I think that's what keeps us all kind of coming back. Are you guys still designing though? Like I know you're bringing other people's games in now that other designers, which is the right move, I think, as a publisher,
Mhm.
especially when you have, side, when this is your side job. But there's still that bug of the design. Is there still kind of even in the background, even if it's not going to get published anytime soon, designs you guys are still working on, or
Oh yeah, we have, well, two that I can think of that we three, sorry, that I can think of that we have
yeah,
put at least a lot of thought into. There are a couple that we've actually played in different stages, early stages a few times. And there are certainly ideas, backing up. So definitely, but yeah, I think, yeah, I don't know. We'll just have to see. But I think
Yeah.
we're gonna, look at other people's designs for the short term at least.
yeah,
And I think whatever we do will probably be lighter. Like Cyberpunk Quest was definitely lighter than Omicron Protocol, but even then, near the end, there were just some nights Brendan and I were just like, well, we just finished a long day at work. We have to play test and finish the design.
mm,
So I think whatever we design will probably be like Lunar Skyline level
Yeah.
weight
yep,
Yeah.
for now. Um, Someday we'll get back to the full dungeon crawl co-op game.
yeah. It's a lot of work, right? A
Hmm.
lot of work, and I think that's some of the allure. I think of these gateway games, for lack of
Mhm.
a better
Yeah.
word, is that the development cycle is a lot quicker. Challenge being sometimes it's tougher to charge a higher price on a more simple
Hmm.
game, right? So it's kind of always that balance of figuring, okay, what is kind of the plan and how you mapping out your launch strategy to ensure you're both having games that are fun, but also games that are going to at least fund the machine and keep the development and production going forward. In
Yeah.
this campaign, is there anything that you guys did in this campaign that you've built on prior learnings from the other campaigns you've done? Like, is there any one thing you're like, next time we do a campaign, we got to do this, and that's something you're doing on this particular campaign?
Hmm.
Can't think of any one thing, but we've certainly been refining our methodology. And I think like planning ahead and planning out quests is probably one of those things, or just,
Hmm.
and like a timeline of, these are kind of updates that we're going to do. Here are a few stretch goals that we think are really important, and we're kind of ordering them in a way that, that we think adds the most value to the most people,
Yeah.
across our
Yep.
campaign. So those things are just, yeah, learnings that we've been incorporating, and we did better with, this one than we did with Cyberpunk West. We did better with Cyberpunk West than Lunar Rush. So it's definitely a learning process, but
And you have an
yeah.
audience that continually comes forward as well, right? And even looking at your page, I mean, it's clear to me that you now have the format, right? You've got, I don't like the
Hmm.
model, I guess is a word I can use for how to kind of construct a Kickstarter page. Where are the key things you have to do? How do you set it up? Once you kind of figure that out, then subsequent ones you're following that kind of like you're saying before, the map, right? It's like, okay, we got the
Yeah.
map. Now we've got to, it's gonna be a lot of work. It's got to be a lot of grinding, but at least we've got the roadmap drawn out. We're not having to kind of figure that out from scratch, which I think is quite helpful as well, right?
Yeah, and that's the other thing. Like, I'm like looking at how many games we back just to kind of we review Kickstarter campaigns, successful ones, unsuccessful ones, and we look at like, hey, it's their like key features section. They're like, why should I back that section? Like, what's good about it? And we just take notes, mental notes or actual written notes. And yeah, we have like 581 campaigns backed. It's just like constant research. Like every Tuesday, I'm on also like just backing a bunch of different people's campaigns and going like, oh, this is awesome. Oh, it's a cool idea. So you're always like shamelessly stealing from other people's ideas.
It's all iterative, right? And it builds on what's come before, and it's like the evolution of the industry. You must have a lot of games on your shelf now. Yeah, like have you run out of space at all for your games, or?
I have a one shelf rule, so pretty much if it doesn't fit, I sell it. So yeah, a lot of games have passed through my shelf, but my shelf is currently about 30 something games. I just keep it at that number.
Oh wow. That's discipline if I've ever seen it. So talking about discipline, what is the next title for you guys? Can you talk about what's coming next after this game? Like you must have mapped out what the next launch is and the timing and so forth. Can you talk to that at all, or?
Working title. Yeah. What?
Oh, well, do you want to count new games or
just what's coming next? Like after this campaign is done, I'm sure you've mapped out what the next campaign is.
Yeah.
Yes.
Can you talk about that or no?
Yes, we can. Yeah. That's Lunar Rush expansion. So we're expanding that game to include asymmetric factions, adding a fifth corporation and a fifth player to play that corporation. So those are two massive upgrades to that game, I think. So, and yeah, we've been playtesting that now for a little over a year.
A little over a year now, and a lot of Lunar Rush players are always like, do you have it? I want to try it. And then I think the next new game will potentially be another one by Skippy, the same designer, by Lunar Rush. It'll be in the same universe, but it's a very different game, another small game. So those are probably the two that we can support in 2025.
Oh, that's amazing. Well, for those who want to check out this campaign, I will put a link in the show notes so you can just go there and click on it, or go to Kickstarter and quite frankly just type in Lunar Skyline. It'll pop up right away. I mean, it's on my For You page, right? So, I see it every day when I open up my Kickstarter, but it could be because of cookies, who knows? But easy to find. I encourage people to check this out. You do have, I think it's 4 days left of this campaign. I want to wish you guys all the best on this. I can't wait to see how this ends. And we got to get you back sooner than having a 200, almost a 300 episode space between episodes. We got to get you guys back at least in 100 episodes.
Absolutely.
Yeah, love to come back. Thanks for having us again.
All right, guys, you take care. Cheers. This has been an episode of the Board Game Binge podcast, hosted by James Staley, produced by James Staley and Mike Bruner, with original music by Nick Smith. If you would like to watch these interviews live, simply subscribe to our YouTube channel, Board Game Binge, and you'll get access to live interviews, giveaways, and interesting board game content from across the industry. I can't wait for you to join us. See you next time.